Hello guys. uh, our crew is DC Productions and this is our project brief.
So our project's name is Silhouette, which is it's gonna be a psychological thriller, which we plan on like building tension instead of like actually showing all the scares. We just build the tension instead. Yeah.
As you know, we are DZ Productions, and this is our logo.
And this is the crew, the squad, and each of our responsibilities.
So our genre is psychological thriller, and unlike traditional thrillers that focus on physical danger, it's exploring the mind of characters and blends elements of suspense and psychological fiction. And they create emotion through narratives using tension and ambiguity. And they tend to have complex narratives with lots of suspension and twists. Here are some examples of psychological thrillers. You may recognize some. And the conventions we intend to follow is psychological conflict and intense character focus, like mental distress, claustrophobic settings like isolation and confined spaces, low-key lighting, twists, and ambiguous endings.
These are the movies that inspire us. The first one is Pearl. The plot is a young woman on the brink of madness pursues stardom in a desperate attempt to escape the rural life. And the second one is Spiderhead. A prisoner in a high-tech facility questions the purpose of emotion-controlling drugs that he's testing for a pharmaceutical genius.
Right, and this is the audience. So to find our audience, we did a little bit of audience research, and to do that we sent out a survey. We sent it out to 40 people, 60 people. I think we got 60 responses. Some of the questions we asked were, what locations would you expect in a psychological thriller? What emotional states do you find compelling? Should we use repeated conventions, such as Lacey's theory or Neil's theory of using different conventions? And we asked what our character should have, what problem should our character have, and some of us chose DID, schizophrenia, and some others. Should the storyline be made clear or left for the audience to interpret? Many people said that it should be left for the audience to interpret, so they can actually start thinking and actually be hooked onto the opening. And yeah, that's it. And this is so we are targeting a niche audience because we went to a subgenre, psychological thriller, and so that means we're gonna have a smaller audience. We'll have complex narratives, and they'll have a preference of inner turmoil, plot twists, and suspense, and that's what they expect to see in our psychological thriller. We are aiming to get our target audience would probably be 18 to 36 years old, so because it does take quite a bit to figure out, because we'll be dropping hints along in our opening scene, and they'll need to be able to look at those hints and be like, oh, look at this, okay, this is adding up, and then they'll be like, okay, what's he leading to? And then at the very end of the opening scene, they'll figure out, oh, that's happened. And yeah, that's it.
So basic narrative and production techniques. So for our basic narrative, we plan on using Todorov's theory of like equilibrium, disruption, and all that. But we plan on starting just from the disruption, just skipping the equilibrium, because we think our survey, it said that they like the not boring stuff, so we're gonna start right from the disruption. So our short story, we haven't really like figured out the entire story yet. So we just have most things that we plan on using, which is an apartment. So we're gonna use like an apartment because it's like isolated and stuff. So we plan on using the atmosphere and lighting of the city, which is like dark and gloomy and stuff. So our main protagonist, we plan on using like a villain as our protagonist. We plan on showing a lot of hints, which Sebi already talked about, like hints at schizophrenia through unusual behaviors like shaking uncontrollably, disorganized speaking, and paranoia. So our production techniques, camera work, we noticed that most movies in this genre use a lot of still shots. It's like because it's more eerie and stuff. And for editing, it's pretty important for us because we need the audience to feel immersed, and so we plan on using continuity and stuff. For sound, we noticed that sound is quite important for psychological thrillers as it builds most of the tension through silence or either intense music. For the mise en scene, for the clothing, we plan on using normal everyday clothing because it like relates to the audience as they're used to seeing it. For the facial expression, we plan on using a lot of close-ups to express these because it's easy to see. For lighting, we use low-key lighting and dark color themes. We probably won't use a lot of iconography because there isn't much to use.
And this is our main character and how they will be represented. So they'll be represented as crazy. We'll give them like a mental illness of some sort that hints to paranoia. So we can weaponize the fear of the main character, use it as an antagonist to drive the protagonist to be the villain. If you know, you know. That's basically our idea so far.
Any questions?
Talked about your iconography,
Yeah.
and you mentioned the fact that you don't need a lot of it. Have you considered dressing your scenes? And by that I mean, for example, if you were filming at a desk, what's on the desk can be just as telling as what a character is wearing. So would you consider revisiting that idea of the iconography? And perhaps you talked very eloquently about putting in sort of hints as you go. Would you consider investing some time in perhaps the iconography being another tool that you could use to add hints?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think we planned that the apartment we could decorate with, like the mise en scène would have hints with the iconography, but it wouldn't be a prime focus, but it would be there for sure.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you.